When you're searching for the perfect homestead property, there's things that you should be willing to be flexible on, and there's things that you should not. I call these negotiables and non-negotiables. Ultimately, what these things come down to is your context. And when you're looking for a place to build a new life, there's a lot involved there. You know, there's a lot of things to consider. And we're going to get into those in the following videos. But in this one, I want to just set up the framework in which you look for property. Because at the end of the day, it's ultimately about you and you alone. And of course, your greater context, such as your family and other considerations that you'll have in your life. But before you can actually go out and start looking for something, a place to settle down or a place to, like I said, build a homestead or build a life, you really need to understand what your context is. And a really simple way to do that is to sit down with your wife or husband and write almost like a synopsis to a book. It could be a couple paragraphs, it could be a whole page, it's up to you. But write down what you want in a homestead. How do you imagine your life when you live on the land? What are the chores you imagine doing? Do you want to have animals? Do you want to have a garden? Do you want to build a food forest? Do you want to build your dream home, etc.? All of these things are really important to understand. And in that, when you really analyze your own context, what you should be extracting from that is things that you're willing to negotiate on, as in things that you want but you could be flexible on for the right place, and then things that you're not willing to be flexible on. These are non-negotiables. So these are two things that I always start with when I was consulting to help people find land or find a better place for their farm, or just to help them craft a better vision for their homestead life or their business, is understanding what you can negotiate on and what you cannot negotiate on. Because I can't help you if I don't know those things. And ultimately, you can't help yourself if you don't know those things. Because as you look for land and as you look for a place to settle down, there's a lot out there and there's a lot of things to consider. But if you don't have a foundation of your own understanding and your own context, you're going to be kind of pissing in the wind. And you'll waste a lot of time thinking about things that probably weren't worth your time to begin with. So you really want to understand your own context. And so let me give you some examples of how I went about looking for this property. Is I had a list of things that were negotiable and non-negotiable. And so some of my negotiables were, one, I wanted to be on a south-facing slope, but I was negotiable with that. What I wasn't negotiable with on is I didn't want to be on a north-facing slope. That was non-negotiable. I didn't want to have any variation of a slope that was facing north in any way, northeast, northwest. Didn't matter, because I wanted to live on a mountain property like we are now. That was the thing that I really wanted topography on my land, and in some of the coming videos I'll talk more about that. But in my own context, I wanted that. So I wanted a south-facing slope. That was negotiable. I didn't want a north-facing slope. That wasn't negotiable. I wanted to be in a rural area, and I was negotiable on the specifics of that. I mean, when we were looking, we looked as far north and east as Revelstoke, and then I looked as far south as Osoyoos. I'm talking about British Columbia here, and I went as far west as Merritt, and I was kind of looking in that area. So I was negotiable. I wasn't negotiable on being too close to a big city or even a medium-sized city. I wasn't negotiable on that. But what I was negotiable on was being closer to smaller towns. So that was okay for me. Another thing that I wasn't negotiable on is I didn't want to be near any large farmland. And so that actually really limited the kind of places that I was looking for, because it now took me out of agricultural type properties into more what's considered recreational type properties, which is exactly what we're on. And these are the kind of properties, you'll see them all over the US, Arkansas, Tennessee, even Texas. They call recreational properties. They're places where people sometimes had a cabin where they would go hunting. Those kind of properties are actually fantastic when it comes to homestead properties. Yes, you'll have a little bit more work in if you want to have a farm or gardens like I do here, but you're going to start with a lot more vegetation and wildlife, and it's better to start with trees and vegetation than without. And on our 40 acres here, we have 30 acres of trees, and we have our 5 to 8 acre primary area that's within this fence that we built. That's an animal fence that is fairly open. I've got some trees in it, but I wanted to have a property that had a lot of that, and so that can create some challenges. But that was actually also a negotiable for me. I wanted to have the majority of a property be vegetation and wildlife, but I looked at some properties that weren't that, and I thought they were okay. Ultimately, we settled here. But those are just some examples of things that you're willing to negotiate on and things you're not. You know, and another one for me that was non-negotiable was I didn't want to live on anywhere near a major road, especially one that made the property or the house or the main living area on the property visible from the road. I wanted that. And that really came down to because, you know, people know who I am, and I had a problem for many years of YouTube subscribers showing up at my house in Kelowna, which was flattering but also annoying. And so I really valued privacy, and so I was willing to be flexible on my access. I mean, it's nice to have good access on a property, but I was willing to be flexible on that, knowing that the trade-off for me was better privacy. And two, privacy is a really nice thing when you want to go to the city, because now you don't have nosy neighbors, you know, asking questions about every little thing you're doing on your property. And that can happen, especially in some states where, you know, maybe it's places like upstate New York or parts of California where everybody's just got their nose in everybody else's business. And so I didn't want that. And so ultimately, because I chose to live in British Columbia, which is, as they refer to in Canadian politics, the left coast, I chose to live in an area that has an extremely low population density, but also is, generally speaking, more conservative, more family values, more people just living rurally and working rurally. I wanted to be in an area like that. And so those are just some examples. But really, before you can proceed with going to evaluate properties, you really need to understand what's important to you, what do you want, what will you negotiate on, and what will you not negotiate on. That is going to set up your entire foundation before you can jump into this greater framework that we're going to explain in the following videos. So that is key to understanding, and really take the time to think it through. Talk about it with your spouse or your partner or whatever. Talk about it with your kids. Talk about it with the people that you might be partnering in this endeavor with. Really get a sense of that and have an agreement with that. One thing that I saw constantly in my consulting practice of many years, helping farmers and homesteaders get out of the city and get on land, is where the wife and the husband were at odds with some particular issues, and it really, really screwed things up, because they went ahead and made decisions and then later circled back to those things that they were at odds with, and it really caused some tribulation in their relationship. So you really want to be on the same page with your spouse going in. Before you start on this journey, be absolutely united on what you want. That is absolutely critically important. So what I'm talking about here is that I've created this online course called Finding the Perfect Homestead Property. And I really want to help you, if you don't already know how to do this yourself, I really want to help you learn to be able to read the land, read the climate, and suss out the right information about a place so that you can settle down in it. So right here, I'm going to play a quick preview for this course to give you a little bit more idea of what it's all about. In my masterclass, I'll teach you a framework that you can apply to any property, anywhere. You'll be able to quickly spot threats, red flags, uncover opportunities, and discover strengths. I then apply this framework to over 50 properties all over North America in all different types of climates. You can watch me in real time review properties of all different sizes, prices, and stages of development. This will completely change how you find properties. You'll be faster, you'll be more confident, and you'll waste less time. All right, if that sounds interesting to you guys, head over to homestead.freedomfarmers.com, and there's a waiting list there right now. We're going to be releasing this course sometime in April, hopefully sooner than later, but it's been a lot of work to build this course. I can tell you that I absolutely know the information in this course is going to help a lot of people. And we've got a waiting list there. And so just sign up, put your email address in, and very shortly we'll send you some more information about the course, and we'll send you the opportunity to jump into the early bird pricing, and then we'll send you some more information about the general release date and all that. But if you want to get in on the early bird price, make sure you're on the list. So head over to homestead.freedomfarmers.com, and I look forward to seeing you guys in there. And in the next videos, we're going to explore further this framework which I use to evaluate land.